I'm a DP, underwater camera, underwater DP also, and operator, and also a normal operator based in Berlin, born in Chile and raised in Berlin. And I have four great guests here that will talk about the beautiful work in extreme conditions like above the water, in the sky, in the air, underwater, or like you in many extreme conditions like snowy mountains for months. And we'll talk about, listen to examples of what these extreme conditions are like. And yeah, let's start with a quick introduction. I'll read just what we have here. We'll have an inside look at the art and precision of aerial, underwater, and high-intensity filmmaking, about the technical and creative challenges of shooting in those extreme environments. So let's start with Sarah. Introduce yourself, please, and yeah, tell us a bit about you.
Hello, thanks for having me. My name's Sarah Thomas Moffat. I am a cinematographer with about 30 years of film industry experience from Canada, and am Scottish by nature. And so I'm a UK Canadian. Right now I'm based over in the UK, growing my career into narrative. As far as the topics that we're going to talk about, earlier in my career I've done a lot of documentary field work and also the adventure stuff, which Andreas was tapping into. So a lot of serious directorial photography stuff for shows like History Channel shows, where I'm living up in the Rockies off the grid for 4 months, in the Yukon in the winter, working on Amazing Race Canada, kind of fun stuff like that, where you really cut your teeth and earn my stripes. So now I get to sit on a dolly and eat things off the craft table.
Thanks, yeah.
Hello everyone, my name's Amy Silk. I specialise in underwater camera work. I've been in the industry for about 14 years. Most recently I've been working on 47 metres down the wreck, but I've also done projects like Kingsman, Wonder Woman, a little bit on Bond, How to Train Your Dragon and things like that.
Thanks.
Thank you. My name's Emma Boswell. I have been working in the field of aerial cinematography for. I look after the drone side of that, and I've been doing that since around 2012, when drones first became a thing, when people first started to think about putting cameras on aerial platforms. I founded a company with my partner Kat, who was an innovator in the field. We started a company called the Helicopter Girls, and we're still called the Helicopter Girls, although we have a very diverse crew working with us these days. We cover the spectrum of drone film work. We've just come off Supergirl. Lovely Phil was working on that with us. And we've done many different productions, from Wicked to all manner of exciting kind of TV drama. We do FPV work, we do heavy lift drone work, and we kind of specialize in innovation. So we're always looking at kind of upping the game.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Phil. I'm a specialist camera person, just like everyone else here. My specialism is aerial. It's sort of the bigger side of things. So we specialize in helicopters and fixed wing platforms. This is actually a bit of a return to the motherland for me. So I'm originally from Germany, and I've sort of spent most of my time in the UK. So I'm now London based, and we do everything that requires manned aviation. And we've been doing Mission Impossible, the Formula One film, and loads of other things. Supergirl with Emma and the Helicopter Girls. And my background is I always used to be a freelancer, so my service as a camera operator or as a DP for multiple different companies, and then for the last sort of 5-6 years, I now run a specialized helicopter sort of manned aviation company, and we do all the bigger types of aerial cinematography.
You're like a two-man show there, or?
Where about in my company?
Yes.
Yeah. So the helicopter side, it's one of those things. There's like strapping a camera to a helicopter, but just like everything in the film industry, right? Like it's a constant collaboration between the people working on it. So the company is is myself, like bringing the camera knowledge to the side of it, and my business partner Will Banks. He's a pilot, and he's sort of specialised for the last 10 years in flying cameras for film, you know, background in the Navy and all of that. But realistically, for the last 5 years, especially, like, you know, with a heavy focus on just film work.
Okay. So I've got some questions here. We want to talk about the special challenges. Like, I know with the underwater work, like logistics is always a thing to tell the production company, to give them an idea. Actually, sometimes they don't have the experience to say like, okay, how much, what do you need actually? And then they go like, oh, okay. The challenges and logistics, like when it comes to cinematography in those extreme conditions, like what are the challenges that you are usually facing in your field? And are there any, just give an example on how the preparation looks like and working on set, and maybe then like take us through a day of shooting conditions or a day that you remember, so we all get an idea. It's like, oh, that little scene in this and that project, okay, might have taken so and so long. And also maybe get an idea of like the equipment you've used and where it came from. And while you do that, I'll have a slideshow, so each one of you can talk for a few minutes, and we'll go afterwards into more a different, not the technical side of things. So I don't know who wants to start, maybe, to give us an example, like the challenges, logistics, and like a shooting day, and maybe some examples. We'll go later also to some fun or extremely like anecdotes of experiences that are special, but maybe just giving us an idea how that work is going.
Okay, so one of the interesting things about underwater filming is that we put the cast in the same environment that we're in. So I'm a qualified HSC diver, but we also have to put the cast in that same environment. So that requires some like really advanced training for them. So they don't have to be qualified as a diver, but they do have to be trained. So we work with some really skilled safety divers. Most of my work is UK based. So we rely a lot on this safety diving team. They train the artists up, and it's different to like teaching someone how to dive, because if you're teaching someone how to dive, you teach them how to like use their gauges and like their air pressures and things like that. The cast don't need to know that. They need to know how to breathe. They need to know how to...
After the end, travel.
Oh, this is a job we worked on recently. This is just a little example.
Yeah.
Let you watch it.
You can keep talking.
Oh, sorry, that was me. I was asking him. Sorry, yeah, this is a video. Keep on talking.
So this job is a sinking set, but sometimes they do go underwater a little bit. But they often have to take their masks off, take their air out to perform. And where that's different to just learning how to dive is that the safety diver has to know when they're acting and when they're actually panicking. So these safety divers are really... Here's me eating. Most photos of me eating. We have a running joke that we work all day like really hard underwater, and you come to the surface for a quick bite to eat, and that's when you get your photo taken. So it's hard to find photos of me not eating. Here we're just doing some lens grids. This tank was... had a glass side, so that's why everyone was filming us. But this is sort of what we get on.
Where's
up
this
to.
tank, if I can ask?
This was just in the car park at Pinewood.
Okay.
Obviously, they have the big underwater studio at Pinewood, which is great to work at. This is an example of a sinking set on Kingsman many years ago. I think it was 2016 or 2017. So here we're shooting 2-camera underwater. And the hard thing with this one is because the room starts wet and then ends dry. So you start fully kitted up, you've got your fins on, you've got your BCD and your air tank and everything on. and then the room's suddenly dry, and then you're still in your flippers. You got your mask on and your VCD and everything. So that was particularly fun. We do it often the other way round, where you start dry, and then to create the illusion that the room's filling up, we just sync the set, which is also fun. That's the opposite direction. Here we're shooting a storm scene. This is in the Infinity Pool in Malta.
Oh yeah, I know that one.
Yeah. So that's also really good fun. That was on Deep Fear, which was a shark film that we've done recently. I'm just sat with a lot of equipment.
So about like, for example, just to get an idea how long you actually, like, let's say to fill up that, to go for another take, or just to get to the point where you actually shoot. Because sometimes my experience is also like, okay, we just have a person syncing in front of the camera, we have the black background, and then they say like, oh, how long do you need to prep and how long do you need in advance? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, the technician takes the camera maybe an hour or whatever, but also like, don't expect to be shooting before 3 hours after call. So like, to just get the magnitude of the preparation and or the expectations there. What is your experience there?
So ideally, if we're working in a studio, we like to have a day before so we can pre-light and prep, which involves putting the camera in the housing, which is done by our housing technicians. And that's also a day that we can weight the camera up, because to operate underwater, you want the camera in the housing to be neutrally buoyant. If it's heavy, it makes it such hard work, and if it's too buoyant, you can't even get it underwater. So that's something that we can do on that pre-light and prep day. The cast also gets trained up, and also you can just run through any sort of snatch points that you might have throughout the shoot. We can just it's always nice to turn over on that prep day just to get one under your belt. But yeah, ideally we'd have one day just to at least one day to get ready, and then we can turn up in the morning, and then we can start shooting pretty much straight away. Yeah.
Can you give us a quick example of how you prep a shoot like this one, where okay, we're going to have that scene and the water's going to disappear? How long in advance are you being approached, and what kind of equipment is involved, just to give it a slightly technical talk about it, and who provides that stuff?
So we'd like to get the call months in advance, but we all know that never happens. Sometimes it's quite last minute, and that's where the expertise really comes into play, because most things we have done before. And then equipment-wise, there's lots of different types of underwater housings, and they all have a place where they are useful and also a place where they are no good. So, for example, a splash bag. Great if you're on the surface, the camera's floating, or if it's on a hydroscope or something like that. That is the right tool for the job. But if you try and take that scuba bag underwater, it's going to be very difficult, because the air pressure will squeeze and press all the buttons on the camera. It will fold over all the plugs. So that's an example of where that piece of equipment is not right for the job. We actually make our housings. So I think we've got about 5 that fit all different types of cameras. We don't own the cameras, because they change all the time, and if a DP wants to use a specific camera, then they can use that. We've just got the housings, and actually we keep it quite simple. So all of our
are they more like universal housings for different kinds of brands?
Yes, so they're all handmade, and we can fit Alexas, Sonys. Even some film cameras can go in there. Okay. And then we've got a teeny tiny one, which I think there's a photo of there somewhere, which fits a mini in, which is good if you have to lift it out the water and go under, because that's quite tricky.
Quite a difference in weight.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll jump to the next one, because we got to keep an eye on the time. It's always so difficult when you
Who's next?
don't have so much time. whoever wants to go next.
Go, Emma.
Oh, let me, go, Emma, go. Let's see what is here. So, yeah,
I find
take
it
us through
really
a day. Well, you are also a co-founder. You're very experienced. You're also on the managing side. Thank you so much. That was really great. On the managing side of things, and of course, the drone side. Do you fly yourself often still?
no, I don't. So it's really interesting actually listening to you talking about underwater and the correlation between underwater and in the air and that kind of specialism. And I think where we sit as a company. So I don't go out on set any longer. Kat and I a long time ago found actually my history is in documentaries. I used to be a producer and a director. So having done kind of 20 years of that, Kat started discovering drones because we were doing a project ourselves and we wanted to find a way of moving a camera. So at that time, it just all happened that, kind of drones suddenly were there and Kat just knew an enormous amount about it. And so therefore, we that's how we got into it.
You were kind of pioneers. Sorry to interrupt you. You were kind of pioneers because as we have a focus on women in cinematography, there's also like this. The first time, Kat was also the first woman to.
She was the first. She was the first woman flying heavy lift drones. She didn't want to do anything kind of small. Anybody who knows Kat knows that she doesn't like doing things by halves. And so she was always interested in, I want to lift a bigger camera, better lenses. I want to do, it was around the time when drones first sort of were around, it was like the holy grail to lift was the Canon 5D or maybe the Red Weapon maybe. And Kat wanted to push the boundaries. And so we imported the first airframe from a little known company at the time called Free Fly, who of course now are huge and provide the Alta X drones. So I think because we were so interested in the innovation and we realized that quite quickly that actually this was going to be a significant thing in the industry, we started pulling in other people who were much more talented than we were, who were brilliant pilots who'd come from a background of flying remote controlled helicopters and planes, because they needed that kind of precision and that ability to work in stunts, which is why it's still a very difficult area to bring women into, because this is not a field that young girls don't get that opportunity so much with their starting out very early in remote controls. However, I hope that changes because we're all gaming. People are gaming now, and I think that skill on the joystick is going to make a big difference. So yeah, we started just kind of pushing and more interested in how can we, what can these guys do? And Phil, I can testify. We've worked with Phil for many years now, and it's just incredible to see what they're doing. And I think what speaks to me about what you do is planning is everything. It's all about we have to, especially with drones, the regulations are so different in each country. It's so important that you get it right. And my job, because I believe in always saying yes, is how do I solve that? We're problem solvers. We love a problem, and we'll figure out how to get around it. So whether it be trying to make hand catch work, trying to make this drone that you can just see here, lovely photograph that Phil took. The previous photograph was of a new drone that we have, which was designed. This one here was designed for the Dutch Navy, and we decided we need a drone that's
there's collaborations also with out of the cinema industry.
Well, we decided we're governed by weather. We cannot fly in the rain. People do fly a little bit in the rain, but you're going to get rain on the lens. You have to worry about your electronics. So we thought, we need to let's figure out this. Maybe this is a new thing. So this year we've got a drone, which I'm very excited to say that Phil got signed by J.J. Abrams the other day.
Oh.
on the set of Ghostwriter. So this is kind of we're trying to always sort of prepare and push and it's it's all about kind of creating an environment that these guys can then, you know, excel in. The footage that you're looking at now is what some of my favourite footage that we've shot, and this was for Downton Abbey, and this is with an FPV drone with a.
Yeah, maybe. Sorry to interrupt. Can you just go give us an example of the the shooting day to create that, like a brief summary of how, so we all understand how, actually to have these small shots, horses, riders, communication, and drone, and the first AD in tears trying to get everything together, just to give us an insight of a day like this, for example.
So maybe I can tell you about what preparation went into it, and maybe then Phil can tell you about the shooting of it because he shot it. The DP for Downton Abbey is Ben Smithard, and he knew that he wanted he would get a limited number of runs with those horses. It was up north at Ripon Racecourse. He knew he'd get a limited number of runs with the horses. They're real race horses. We work a lot with horses, but these are race horses. So these horses we have to be particularly careful of. You know, they can spook, whatever. So what we knew is that Ben didn't just want kind of high wides. He wanted stuff that was right in there with the horses. And so what we did is we kind of re-engineered one of our FPV, or several of our FPV drones, to be able to carry the Movi gimbal underslung, so that we could fly a 100mm lens. We could fly a 130mm lens, actually. So that's what that was shot on, and that's a very unusual thing with drones, because obviously for obvious reasons, you know, and it's very difficult as an operator. So maybe I'll hand over to Phil, who can just tell you about that.
Yeah, maybe we do a little summary of you both, just because I always look at the time still, to give us an insight about,
of course,
about your work, and so maybe also an example of your aerial DP work.
Yeah, so Ripon was interesting because, as Emma said, the challenge was real racehorses on a real track, and there was a horse race the next week. So when the production say, okay, we want to do this on the drone, you've got like multiple levels of difficulty here. A, how do racehorses deal with drones? Because if you go with someone like the Devil's Horseman, or not sure what the other company is there in the UK, Steve Dent Horses, they've got horses, we've flown with them multiple times, like, you know, every month basically. They know drones, they're not spooked by them. You kind of then get the drone next to racehorses, it's an unknown. But
was
also,
it easy? Did they react on somehow?
No, they didn't react to it at all, because they've got blinders on, they're so focused on it, their blood is up, they're really just going for the race. But also you're trying to fly behind their eye lines mostly. But the big thing here was where the production could sort of get shots they couldn't do before, because normally you do this on a tracking vehicle. Exactly. That wasn't an option, because you're going to have tire marks through slightly wet ground. Hence we were limited to 3 runs with the horses, because the horses obviously they also chew up the ground. So the drone ultimately was the right tool for that. But it's interesting because the drone technology, we were talking about this earlier, you kind of had, you know, the DJIs came out, you had the Phantoms and the Minis and all of that stuff, and they're fantastic. And then film productions were like, okay, now we want to fly big cameras, like massive lenses. And a lot of people are so like, there is DPs that are like format agnostic. They're like, you know what, I just want to fly, this is the shot I want to get. But there's also DPs that are like, I need to fly this camera with this lens. And then it's our job to figure out how to do that. So we had that for probably 4, 5, 6 years, where it was like specific cameras, specific lenses. And now we're kind of entering this new realm of like, we're trying to kind of look more at the shot rather than the technology, because we've proven that we can just about fly anything. So now it's about how do we expand the scope of what we can do. So now we're talking hand catchers. We're doing a lot of like really complex FPV work, where the nice thing is the FPV pilot flies the drone with the goggles, so they can get really close to things. They can do moves you can't do with a heavy lift aircraft. But then you add a gimbal to it, so all of a sudden you've got this hybrid. That's why it's called the hybrid of a drone shot, and also tracking shot, or maybe a shot operated by a person on a Steadicam. So the sort of scope of what we can do is really growing. But I've got some examples as well from my side. Should I segue straight into the? the other part?
Yeah. Maybe we go on with you just to keep it compact, and then go to you.
Yeah.
You can also, because you are more. There's also the helicopter side of things, which
Yeah.
I am interested in, or we are interested in, to get an idea of like shooting with a helicopter and a pilot communication and the magnitude of logistics and dangers and so on.
Yeah, I think to sort of start off with, I think we're all specialists. We all do something very niche in this industry. And it's an interesting one because you take an industry that's, for example, incredibly difficult. I think everyone that's worked in this industry know how difficult it is to get a foot in the door here. And then you take that industry and you shrink it to this very specialist, minute thing where you're like, okay, I'm going to become really good at this one thing. And, instead of one job with 3 months, 4 months of work, you all of a sudden, it kind of comes down, you maybe have a week or less on it. And I think that realistically is the fusion of like working in film, loving to create images, but then another passion. And I think like Amy, for example, like you're a passionate diver. You were a diver before you did that. I love flying, like I always have. I've got a background in extreme sports. So before I got involved with flying planes and helicopters, I would skydive and fly wingsuits and all that. So I always loved things that were in the air and that were sort of slightly more on the extreme side of life. And that's actually what got me into doing these things. So the helicopter side started because I was looking how to shoot extreme sports. And a lot of this was like motocross, skydivers, jetpacks. I used to spend a lot of time in the Middle East. So you go, okay, these things are quick. They fly through the air. How do you now capture that? And the thing is, like, you need something that can keep up with it. And then when I left the UAE, I came to the UK, and then all of a sudden you learn how to pivot because we got about 4 days of good weather every year. So you need to kind of learn how to film other stuff. So we sort of got really involved in the film side of things. And it's an interesting one because, the drones, for example, they've become so prevalent. Like, they're like cranes now, or like dollies. Like, they're on every set. And often they're like, okay, a crane shot here would take 4 grips and a dolly and a crane technician and a remote head technician. Or we got these 3 people here, and they can just put the drone up there and hover there for 6 minutes, and we get the same thing.
Yeah.
And then the director goes, oh, actually, I want 400 foot, and I want something from above.
Yeah.
So
Until the sound hates you. And says like,
sound always hates us. That's a given.
Yes.
So the helicopter side is a little bit different because we are a really specialized unit. Like this, for example, this was a scene, just a clip out of Mission Impossible, where the brief was, we've got this black jet. We need a shot where Ethan Hunt gets arrested and then flies back to America. Now we need to shoot it.
Yeah, and the pressure on you also to have this maybe 1 or 2 shots, and that's your only chance, because we also had this with the plane to be like, okay, and then the plane's gone,
Yeah, and you become, and realistically, the make or break of creating aerial shots, like this, for example, this was again for Mission Impossible. This was when we shot with an active duty US Navy aircraft carrier in the Mediterranean, and they were on duty. They gave us their time for 2 days, but there's an entire strike group with that. There's like 8 warships that are following this thing around. And that took about 2 months of planning. So then you're speaking to the Air Force, then you're speaking to the Navy, then you're speaking to the captain of a ship. And I say, like, it's a nice anecdote for filming with helicopters or filming with anything that's bigger than that, because realistically, the make or break is in the planning. Like, everything starts with a good plan creatively, and often you don't get a good plan creatively. You get a director that goes, yeah, I kind of want to shoot a warship, but then I want to shoot this aircraft landing on it. So then it's up to us to basically communicate with every party. Where's the ship going to go? Where are the pilots going to go? How are they going to land? What permission do we need? Where do we get our filming helicopter from? How do we ship our equipment? What camera? What lens?
Yo.
So there is so much going on before you sit in the helicopter. And it's like you sit in that helicopter for an hour, but you've done 2 months of work to get there.
Exactly.
So with that as well as a specialism, it's one of those things when people talk about helicopters, they're obviously much more expensive than drones because aviation fuel costs a lot, helicopters cost a lot. There is just extreme amounts of costs associated with it. So the specialism element of that is realistically, you can't get it wrong. Because if someone spends an absolute fortune of their production budget on 1 shot or 2 shots, and you come back and it's slightly out of, like, we don't get focus pullers usually. It's like you're doing it yourself. It's like you're playing the whole orchestra from the back seat. Wow. And it kind of goes back to the video game generation as well. Like, realistically, the world of helicopters, there's been people that have been doing it for 30 years. And there has been no throughput of new talent. And it kind of references as well of like, you know, how do you get more women into these seats? How do you get underrepresented roles into these positions? Because realistically, the door has always been really shut to anyone, not just those underrepresented in the industry as a whole, but also to people that just wanted to do it. Because there's the gatekeepers, they've been doing it for 25 years.
Yeah.
And no one's going to go, yeah, you know what, I'll give you a shot here. But if you get it wrong, the client's going to come back and say, well, you need to do that again for free. And the costs that you bear as a supplier, because you're flying the helicopters, you're bringing all this kit, is huge. So it is a thing. It's like, how do you get into this world of like extremely sort of niche filmmaking?
Exactly.
And how do you get it right? And how do you keep getting hired?
Yeah,
So,
sorry, I will to interrupt because again I want to cover a few more things and go over to Sarah because it's good because I have questions later where we go about like if you have any, if there's mentorship, if there's trainees, how's the next generation of the specialists coming up? So just give us a little insight.
Cool, Phil, that was so cool. Emma, Amy, awesome. This is really exciting for me to share this panel with Andreas too, because we're friends from Cameramat.
Yes.
And and Women in Cinematography. I'm a member of Women in Cinematography here, and we're on a few panels. And thank you to Fran and the ECE people. This is so great. So. So many things to talk about in a really condensed amount of time. Oh, that's a really cool picture. Okay, so
you do both. I mean, I heard you were a hydroflex technician. If anybody maybe say what is hydroflex technician, and but you are here because you've been under extreme conditions. Tell us about it.
Cool, thank you. So, and I'll tie that in. I really want to tie it into everything that you have all been talking about as well, and how, you know, Phil's point on access. So the earlier part of my career, I was a camera assistant for a long time. I was a technician. I did underwater technical work. I worked at William F. White as, you know, fixing cameras. This was all film. I worked, in aerial photography, but from the side of an open helicopter with a little mini Tyler mount and a camera on it, you know, or I worked with these pictures, a lot of these pictures, all of that kind of took me into, from being a technician to a camera assistant, into reality TV and documentary. So once I got a few really good documentaries under my belt, people in the factual reality TV world in Canada from History Channel, Discovery Channel, were starting to call me to hire me as a series director of photography. And what I learned on those shows, living off the grid up in the Rockies and the Yukon during different seasons in different parts of the world, was that I was the one person doing everything. So no, there wasn't a focus puller, there was nothing else. I was fixing things, I was shooting things. I became smart and savvy about, you know, how to get the shot, strap a camera bag with a camera in it to a pontoon plane to fly over a lake, right? Like all that kind of stuff. You know, try and stabilize myself in a jet with my, you know, lots of press-ups and military presses to make your, you know, that G-force push down. Like I was doing real Top Gun stuff with a camera in the backseat of a cockpit. And all of that stuff was fun. And on the note of diversity mixed in that, in Canada at the time, I was the first woman hired as what they called a racer cam op on Amazing Race Canada. And that's a training. We were warming up one day for that. And the reason that I bring that up is not because of that fact, but it's part of the discussion and the access point. At the time I was hired, that was 2017 that I did my first season. I ran 3 seasons. When you run those shows, any of the race franchises, it's a marathon for a month. It's very military. You basically wear the same clothes for a month and you just run with almost a 30-pound camera on your shoulder. And you have to be an athlete. So whether you're working underwater, you're working in, you know, high-stress situations, you have to have a very good amount of self-control. And especially when you're on a race show. That was my camera assistant. No, just kidding. I'll explain that in a second. And so what you learn in those circumstances when you're working alone, unlike the narrative world and the bigger production side of things that you guys are working in, that I'm moving into now as a narrative DP, what excites me is that I've done everything that you're doing to a certain degree. And now I want to work with you. in those situations when I get to level up to those kinds of jobs. And I understand what your needs are. And I understand what your challenges are, and I understand how we can collaborate together, and that to me is super exciting, and I'm so jazzed about getting there because I know where I've come from. I've chased, there's sitting out the sun, I'm like, yeah, sure, you want to just strap me in with a ratchet strap? Okay, let's go 10,000 feet in the air. No problem, right? And it's like, good morning, Vietnam. Like, that was it, right? So I've really grateful for all of those opportunities that I've accessed. Once I started to, because it wasn't easy, and being the only female in that, what I called the hockey team, you know, sort of Canadian side of things, the guys are great. They totally are one of the guys, you know, accepted me and all that kind of stuff. And I really appreciate that. But the flip side of that is that I was still a woman. And as I was growing up into being a woman more and more and had woman expressions of how my identity, it didn't fit into the conversation. Right? And so this kind of circles back to accessing, you know, it's like not easy for anybody to access those gates, you know, and then once you do, you have to assimilate. And I got tired of assimilating. I was so grateful to them for the opportunities that I had. And I learned a lot, and you know, I made some good money, had great adventures. And then I was like, okay, 2019, I hung up my running shoes, and everyone's like, nobody leaves the race. I'm like, I'm leaving the race. You know, I got a bigger goal. I have to express myself. I got to do this, and that's where I'm at now. Is really stepping into who I am as a person, as a woman, as a cinematographer, and taking all of that with me, and like, you know, working with all these wonderful technicians. So excited about that.
I want to go over because, again, the time's pushing.
Yeah.
But
it's okay.
it's a good example to go over to our next question, which is a bit on a focus of how did your role as a highly skilled female specialist have an impact on others? Which challenges did you face in a rather male-dominated niche business? Where are we today? Like, what is today? And to include, maybe in a short, compact version answer, the three of you especially, what about the mentees or trainees and the next generation?
I would say my compact answer would be today. It's hard for people like us in the specialty situations that we're in on any production to bring people in because of the red tape of the production. So it's really difficult for us to just, yeah, sure, come shadow me. Like, it just doesn't happen. I started as a technician and a camera assistant. So I worked my way in, and when I was doing underwater stuff, I was an underwater technician. I didn't just show up and say, I'm an underwater DP. So I think you have to be humble in those situations, and you have to find a way in to learn and not assume that you know everything because you can do it on your iPhone, you know? And then as far as that, well, is that a sort of nutshell enough answer?
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
So, in the like underwater camera world, there are very few women, but a lot of the safety diver teams that we work with have a lot of women divers, which kind of shows that it's not the environment that women can't handle. Women are very good underwater, but the camera department as a whole is very male dominated, and I think that's sort of what we have to address. And part of that is visibility. Like, when I was growing up, my dad was in the industry, and I saw it firsthand. I saw all the best parts of the industry, and I also saw the worst. I think sometimes, especially with social media, people only show like the best parts of the industry. You know, like if you're not working, you're still sharing some photos to make it look like you are working. People don't necessarily see that the industry is so volatile, and I think we just need to be really honest about like the amazing side of it and also the difficulties, so that when people are choosing their careers, first of all, it's on their radar. Like, I think a lot of people, a lot of women don't even know that this is a career path that they could choose.
Do you have mentees and put it like maybe in your company, put a focus on like, okay, we got to train, especially but nowadays more on a focus on like female youngsters to come and join the special forces?
the special forces. Yeah, we do have some women on our team, but it's very hard to get more people involved, partly because there is such a finite amount of work. So I've got a team of people, and I know that I can supply them enough work to sustain them, but I can't give someone enough work to build their career until there's a place in the team. So I think this is where we need to make sure that we support those entry-level roles. Really, let's get as many trainees on a job as possible and pay them sufficiently so that they can get their foot in the door and start building their careers.
It's hard. It's hard to do.
Very hard.
So in about
It
2-3
is
minutes, I want to go over to some Q&A, but maybe a bit more on the focus of what you work on, maybe as a mentorship, or how to get
Bringing
next
women,
bringing youngsters
bringing diversity in, I guess.
and also, maybe
We try to. It is same story. I mean, this is the same story. I should think through the camera department too. And I think we struggle to find women pilots. We struggle to hang on to women camera operators. Part of the reason being that once they're seen as operators, because we need to recruit from the industry. So we need to recruit our camera assistants and our operators from within the industry, because they need to be taken seriously. And you really do need to be taken seriously in a specialism. It's particularly in drones. It just, for whatever reason, because it's come out of hobby technology, it's quite easy to be. It's kind of, we were talking about this earlier. First day at school, people are often waiting for you to do something wrong.
Yeah.
And so it's very important we're kind of quite careful about how we bring people in. I find that I try and do outreach work to schools, to universities, to programs where people are still young, so that I can show them.
Do you reach out to? Do you have programs that you collaborate?
We don't run a program, so to speak. We're kind of it's on the to-do list. I say.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that's very important to me. We're called the Helicopter Girls. A lot of our the people who work with us are guys, and they get the Mickey taken out of them for working for a company called the Helicopter Girls in 2025. I think it's still a challenging area, and we have to acknowledge that, and we have to just keep on trying. And so we've set things up so that we can have kind of camera operators come in and train because they're used to using the wheels. You need to be able to use the joystick as well, because that gives you much more freedom to operate. And so we've got lots of people come to our base, and we do what we can do, but I think more work needs to be done.
And Phil, what about your? Do you have any trainees? What's about the next generation? And because that's also a very special thing. When I was prepping this, it was about okay, what if one of you is sick or whatever? It's you're very very niche, also very one person or two person dependent. You do collaborations as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
sorry, I'm going to do it with the last short answer and then go to the Q&A.
It's going to be really short. We've got a massive issue with qualified people. That goes against any gender, any race. We just don't have enough people. I don't have another person that I feel perfectly comfortable putting into my seat.
Yeah.
And the problem with this is we've got a company, the Aerial Film Company. We really thought long and hard when we named that. The problem is producers don't hire the company, they hire the people. And the way that you can get new people through the door is if I say, this is the person that can do my job, and I'm happy with that. So the way that we can work on bringing more people in is with the personal recommendation, because I'm the head of the department. If I say I want this technician to come in, the production won't question that. So that's the way to open the door. the way for me to find someone that can do my job, who I can put in as well for a second camera, or if I'm not available, if I'm on holiday or walking the dog, is realistically, we need people to come through with a passion, not just for cameras, but with a passion for flying, with a passion for technology. The equipment that we're using is so complex, and it doesn't really matter who it is. It just matters that people show the willingness to learn, and it's a long path to learn the gyro-stabilized systems, for example, on helicopters, because they're 300, 400, 500,000 pounds. We need people to know them inside and out.
Yeah.
And the problem is just it takes a long time to realize how they go wrong, how you can fix them, and how to overcome these challenges. So realistically, we just need more people to come in. We need to train people up, and that will then basically create the foundation for the people that start as technicians and then come through to operating. So that's the way forward.
Do you have any trainees or someone under your wing, you would say?
No, probably not, because we're just so busy.
Not yet, yeah.
Like, and the thing is, like, when we're not busy flying, we're busy doing other things like R&D and working on the kit. And the issue is often like, we should probably create a training course, a foundations course, but you can teach someone 5 days of shot over knowledge, for example, but it's really difficult to then send someone out after 5 days of that, because then they need to come on the set, and then they need to do that. But often it's like, okay, we're flying there with a helicopter, a lot of the work is abroad. So it brings up the question of, like, realistically, I think we need productions to support it.
Yeah.
I think we need productions to say, you know what, specialist departments, you know, because often there is, like, you know, you get 3 camera trainees and people that are shadowing and mentees and all that. That is becoming more common. However, as a supplier to the production, we don't get that sort of conversation. So we're not even us. So even if we wanted to do that, it's all of our own back. And if you're running a business, you know, which is ultimately, you've got overheads and all that, it becomes really difficult to then start swallowing the cost, because you also can't expect someone to say, yeah, this shoot is over there, but sorry, there's not much in it, because we can't charge anyone for it. Yeah. So it's a bit of a chicken and an egg thing, but I think it will get better. But I think ultimately we just need passionate people that are interested.
And also the I'm coming to the Q&A now, because we're running out of the last bit, and I really want the audience to be able to ask some questions and keep our answers short, because my time says 12 minutes. Is that right, Francesca? Do we have 12 minutes? Roughly. But I wanted to say one thing that I couldn't include now, but it's very important. It's also one side. Sarah, you also you are specialized also in some projects, like for deaf and hearing impaired projects. So I can't go into detail there, because that, I guess, was also because you were also born with a hearing loss. And that is something that maybe the audience should know and maybe can approach her. We just don't have the time to dig into that very much. And I want to open the question. Thank you all for now. I'm really sad, as I'm not that experienced as a moderator. It's crazy how the time flies, but feel free for some questions with some short answers, and then,